I've tried countless times to put into words the adventures we go on and the situations we get into, and I just can't seem to do it. So we're going to show you. We're an international auction company specializing in all things vintage power, antique tractors, vintage cars and trucks, motorcycles, signs, and memorabilia. We're not just auctioneers, we're collectors with a passion for every item we sell. But it's not just about the items, it's also about the people. We get to experience, share, and tell the history of our past. Every day is different in the auction industry. You just never know what's coming next.
This time, we're digging through a dusty building in California, discussing vintage harvesting machines, and getting the history on one of the first internal combustion engines. Somewhere under this rubble is a McCormick Deering tractor and a variety of tractor parts. The team needs to clear out this shed so they can catalog the items for the auction. It's been decades since this building has been packed full, and over the years, everything from lumber to old tires has accumulated.
Is there parts buried under there, or?
Yeah, there's parts buried under these here. Top radiator tank. There's something yellow. Flat top fenders. Gold, baby, it's all gold. Old reflector. 2 of them.
Get all out of there, something there.
Pipe out of the way. Fingers? Yep. Right there on my side. You want help going out?
Let's see. No.
Right there.
Yes.
I figured it out because it says cat 30.
That's probably why.
Yeah, so I was
you
hoping
figured
I
it.
nailed that one.
You got that one, did.
I'm
Dead
getting
on.
good. Yeah, we've done this on the wall and it was perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
A little more air and Brian pushing. This thing comes straight out of here. I'll sit on it and steer, do my part.
We're gonna pull it over all this crap and it's gonna
Flat tire.
Yeah, get a flat tire. You want like 80 pounds in here?
No, it's the same.
Is this tire full enough?
What do you think, Rick?
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Okay, pull.
Yep. She wants to roll already. Yeah.
Okay, there's a start. Put some gas in it.
Do we have a hose glove?
Expected the tire to blow. We didn't expect the hose.
Hose blow hole?
Yeah, yes.
Ready to go.
Well, we think we might be able to roll it now. We've aired the tires up and get it around the corner.
Well, let me come in here with the forklift and I don't know what I'll be able to do, but I'm sure it's all gonna try.
This is a McCormick Deering W12. They were built by International Harvester from 1932 to 1938 with a total production of 3,633. This tractor is the standard tread version of the Farmall F12. Harvester, along with many tractor manufacturers, made several variations of the same model. In this case, the F12, a row crop version, the W12, a wide front version, the I12, an industrial version, and the O12, an orchard version. The tractor is out, but there's still more that needs to be moved. And there's still several other buildings on the property that need to be cleaned out. When we come back, on a cold January day, Brian Holst sat down with Kevin Boss to discuss the hobby, their mutual interest in John Deere machines, and Kevin's upcoming auction.
So we've talked about your John Deere passion. Now let's talk about your collection. I know we have an auction coming up where a lot of the stuff is tractor and harvesting related. Let's go into a little bit about the harvesting side. How'd you get into that side?
You know, the way I got into it was the original show that I got started going to was a smaller local show, and they put 2 or 3 acres of oats in for binding for the threshing machine, and they decided they wanted to harvest part of that. So I had actually went to an auction and bought a pull type Massey Clipper combine, first piece that started the whole problem. And I took it to the show, enjoyed it, enjoyed people watching it operate. Mm-hmm. Probably more so than driving it. You know, I enjoyed the look of people and the stories that you get of people of who had one or how it functioned for them or how it didn't function for them. So that kind of got me started. After a year or two, they kind of added some acreage. So pretty soon we was up to 10 acres to harvest and use at the show. I started trying to rely on other people to bring items for the show, and found out that you can easily get yourself in a position of stuff not showing up and look mm-hmm. bad. So I decided the best way to cure the problem was I'll just own everything myself. So I just bought enough stuff to host the show without other people, but if other people showed up, my stuff could sit. You know, it didn't bother me not to use my stuff, but that way I was safeguarded. And that's kind of what got me started in collecting harvesting equipment. You know, and harvesting equipment's so mechanical.
Very much so.
You know, if you look at a tractor, they're mechanical more so than a disc or a plow, but you can only watch one do something so much, and then you've seen everything it can do. Where harvesting equipment is mesmerized, you know, it will mesmerize you by all the functions and the moving parts. Yep. So to see one in the field operating at that age, you know, it took more work to make it happen. So it's more of a success to your work. You know, you get more of a better feeling of success for your work if you actually have a harvesting equipment in the field working rather than a plow or a disc or some other piece of tillage equipment. Sure. Like I said, originally I collected all brands of harvesting equipment, and it turned into be just too much. You know, if you start taking 18 mounted corn pickers to a show and everyone's a different brand, and then you've got the combines, self-propelled, you've got the pull-type combines, it turns into an overwhelming project for an individual person.
Without a doubt.
Yes.
Without a doubt.
So I had to carve my collection down quite a few years ago, and I decided I would just collect solely Deere just because of my closest to Deere and Company.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit more about the items you have in your auction, Kevin. I know there's a lot of videos on the catalog that we see a lot of the equipment moving, But what can you tell me about the tractors, the combine specifically, and most of the corn picker actually?
My sole purpose in most of the stuff was making it active again and using it. So I always tell people when people call me and ask me the value of a combine, I said, well, the values greatly vary if you're talking about it sitting in the yard or in the field operating. And anybody that's had a combine tried to make one operate that's that age realizes what I'm talking about, not just financially but hours of time. So what we tried to do was any of the stuff that's functioning, working, which is most everything. We tried to get videos of everything from just this past fall. These aren't videos from 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but to me as a buyer, it would make a difference. If I see this thing in the field and it was harvesting, fall of 21, I'm willing to take the risk and buy it because I know it's not sat, the motor isn't stuck, the bearings and belts aren't all gone. It's currently being used.
But you're selling something that you would like to buy, not a project.
I'm trying to sell something I wouldn't mind owning, and I'm still a collector. So I tell people I'm going to be going to shows and I'm still collecting yet, so I'm not trying to ditch any of this stuff on somebody just to bury it and get rid of it. I said I'm trying to help implement somebody into the collection world or a usable item rather than just trying to get rid of stuff that that I don't want to fix.
Exactly. That says a lot about.
So honestly, if anybody's got questions on any of the equipment, they can call and I will tell them exactly what I know about it. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not trying to hide anything on my stuff because if I meet this guy next year, I don't want to have to hide from him.
Be sure to visit AumannVintagePower.com to learn more about the Kevin Boss tractor and equipment auction ending on March 10th, 2022. While in Kansas, the team stopped to see Jerry Taves, an early engine collector. He shared the unique story and history of his 1882 3.5 horsepower auto slide valve engine. Jerry purchased this engine in the early 1980s out of a museum in England, but it looked very different than it does today.
As you can imagine, these slide valve engines were obsolete almost as soon as they came out, because when these were produced, it was before electricity, and so they didn't know much about ignition, and so they thought they needed a fire for ignition. And these both have the pilot light that operates in these chimneys, just like a pilot light on your stove at home or your furnace. And so what happened to this engine, and it happened to a lot of these slide valve engines, is they were modified as technology came along. And this entire slide valve mechanism, everything from here forward, this dog bone, the inlet of fuel, all of this stuff was sawed off right here. This governor was sawed off of the cylinder. And Henry Booth, which you'll see this nameplate over here, there's a cylinder head over here that was cast that had more modern technology, and it was bolted to the front of this engine. And it had a traditional type carburetor on it. It used a hot tube ignition, and it had a more modern governor. It used a pendulum type governor. So when we got this engine, this cylinder head was on here, and all of these original parts that made it so unique were all gone. And it sat over in our east building, that first building that you folks went through, for years. And I was always going to put it back like this. But luckily, I never did, because I would have cobbled it very much. Wayne Grenning came along and did a superb job. And I think Alex picked up the book. This is the documentation of what he did when he put this is 900 pages of this restoration.
The job to restore this engine was a massive undertaking. Wayne started by traveling to a museum in England that has an identical slide valve engine. Wayne paid the museum to let him take the engine apart and measure the pieces he needed to make. Back in the United States, Wayne worked with his son to make digital drawings and computer model the engine. This process alone took several months. The drawings were then given to a pattern shop who made over 50 different patterns. Castings were made from the patterns, and Wayne machined every piece, making sure it was just like the original. The entire project took 2 years. Jerry had one request Wayne had to follow.
And one of the things that I didn't want to have happen, I didn't want this engine to be repainted, because all this paint on here is original. If you walk around here and look at this, you'll see some original pinstriping up along here, along these bearings. Like, there's some quite good pinstriping here, you'll see. And if you look on the base over here, you'll see this number 4484. That's a serial number of this engine. That was painted on there in 1882. And to think that that survived, this dark green paint along here, it retains most of that. That's all original. So Wayne had to put this piece on here. This is a casting. He fastened that on here. He put all of these guides, this upper and lower guide for the slide valve, this cover, all of that on there. You can barely tell where it's been joined to the cylinder. And then he colored it just to give it that dark green patina. But I think he did just a fantastic job.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Now we lit the pilot light here that continuously burns. And this is a decompression cam that I have over here. And once it's fired a little bit, then I'll come and give it full compression. Type of hit and miss governor. This governor moves a spool back and forth here, if you can look at it. And when it lines up with this cam, it raises this, and this is the main fuel valve. When this goes up, you'll hear it fire. There it fired. Now it's coasting. Now it's fired. Now it's coasting.
The sliding valve serves 3 functions. It lets an inlet of gas, air, and ignition into the cylinder. The passages are extremely critical, and it's amazing to think that in the 1870s, someone could do this precise of work. These engines originally ran on coal gas, or illuminating gas, which was used in the city for streetlights. Jerry's engines run on hydrogen, which has similar properties to coal gas. Hydrogen has the added benefit of being clean burning, as the exhaust is little more than water.
You bought an engine like this, you got this box with the serial number on it, and what did it have in it but another slide valve and a wear plate. And what you were supposed to do when your slide valve started wearing, you would send that and the wear plate to the factory, and then you'd put this other one on. They would re-scrape it at the factory and send it back to you, and then when this one wore, then they would renew them that way. So Wayne, we made the box, but Wayne made the extra slide valve plate.
Did he already scrape that one for you? I know
Yes.
how long, how long it takes him to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, none of it's easy, is it? I mean,
Oh, man.
It's just all
I forget. I mean, honestly, how many hours he spends scraping
Yeah.
those. I mean, it's
And
it
he-
takes him days to do
Yeah,
that.
right.
Just to, and
Yeah.
by scraping it, I mean he's just getting it like
You can-
completely flat because with a
Well-
machine you can't do it flat enough.
Yeah, that's what amazes me is you can hand scrape it
Hand scrape it and then he runs ink over it.
more accurately than you can do it with the finest machine tools.
Very few of these early engines still exist, so they are highly sought after by collectors. In 2012, Aumann Vintage Power sold an 1888 Crosley side valve rated at 2 horsepower for $336,000 US. Next time, we get a behind-the-scenes look at a John Deere collection in Illinois, and we'll work on some big prairie tractors in Montana.
What are you using your black powder for?
Oh, for that black powder engine right there. That engine there runs on black powder right here.
Huh.
This thing.
Oh,
right
this
here.
one.
Yeah.
This thing here?
Yes.
I'll be darned.
That was designed by Henry Klossmeyer, who was the one of the top engineers for Studebaker in the early 30s, and he designed this. This is a prototype. He designed this for DuPont Powder Company because in the 30s, you know, they weren't doing the old muzzle loaders anymore. They'd figured out these,
No, yeah.
you know,
Smokeless powder and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Cartridges.
he built this engine, and they had always thought maybe they could develop a market for black gunpowder. But this is all the further it ever got. This,
Yeah, seems like it would be pretty darn dangerous.
well, here's the cool thing. This is what Klossmeyer wrote in his instructions. I've got the original in the house. Control of starting and throttle may be located remotely from turbine behind barrier if desired. So you can get behind your barrier with your rope out here
Oh my
and
goodness.
operate it.
Wow. That's tremendous.